welcome to the Spotlight series with SMBConnect. Today we have Mr. Manish Mohta, Director of Learning Spiral. Mr. Manish is one of India's youngest entrepreneurs and an advocate for innovative business ideas targeting Indian youth and their educational interactions. He's the Director of Learning Spiral and currently oversees LSPL's overall operations strategy, product design, service offerings, and business development. We welcome you, Manish. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Radhika, for letting me here.
Yeah. So, I would like to start behind knowing that what was the inspiration behind Learning Spiral? That how did this idea pop up in your mind?
So if you look at the higher education landscape in India, you will find that tech adoption has been quite conservative.
Right.
And this is a high impact zone because the youth is passing out and you want them to get skilled, you want to get them into employable zone, and the biggest impact that can get created is by the higher education sector.
Right.
So when I was looking at ideas, the biggest driver was that what can I do which can have a massive impact on the entire country as a whole and the youth in particular.
Right.
And that's how I zeroed down onto higher education, which has which I think plays a very, very critical role. And within higher education, the concept of how do you actually measure whether the quality of higher education is being delivered in the right manner. And that's the driving force behind Learning Spiral. So we are the solution providers for making you measure whether the education is being delivered in the right way, in the right time, and in the right manner. So that's what we are striving to be, and I think we played a good role in helping institutes overcome the technological barrier and adopt these solutions. So that's been the inspiration, and that's been our journey.
Right. So, how did you come up with this non-traditional way of learning for the higher education? Usually people go from, the following the traditional methods. So, how does Learning Spiral is different from the other institutions and platforms?
So, I've had my education mostly in India, and
right.
when I went, and I've been to good places, prestigious institutes. But when you always compare that with internationally, you find that the infrastructure, not just in terms of buildings, but also in terms of technology, in terms of adoption of technology and adoption of the way in which things need to be done so that students are able to get the maximum, that seems to be missing. And that entire student focus and using technology to get that student focus was something that I missed during my higher education days, and I found that a lot of institutes were still struggling to be able to do that. And so that's been the the trigger that this is an area where there is definitely a gap, and it's a gap which perhaps if we could fulfill, there aren't too many players who are doing that
right. So can you elaborate on the innovative technologies that Learning Spiral is using for to streamlining application management and examination processes and the non-traditional ways?
So if you see the journey of the application management in the last 5-6 years, pre-COVID right down to today, the whole concept of treating students as an important entity, that has become quite important today, which wasn't earlier. Even today, for a lot of government processes, the student as an important entity is not really important. It's his grievances are not settled. He doesn't get, a lot of the times, the information which needs to be provided is hidden in some notification which is buried into some obscure notice board. All of these kind of things are there. And when you look at the higher education landscape, nearly 60% of students study in government institutes. Now, how do you change that? Because these are prestigious institutes, but the processes are not really all that modernized. And that's what we took upon us, that we need to get the best of technology to make sure that we are able to deliver at scale. When you have 500,000 applicants, to be able to provide customer service in terms of student service becomes a very big challenge. And that's the challenge which our government institutes face. To be able to do that at scale using the kind of technology which exists today, whether it is an AI, whether it is a knowledge base, whether it is automated ticketing system, a service level kind of an agreement where within so many hours queries will be answered. So those are the kind of things which we brought to the government landscape, which I think never existed. And even today for a lot of processes, it's almost like a dustbin. The student sends a mail, he never gets a reply.
Right,
And
exactly.
so that's I think been the feeling of most youth when they've applied to even very good institutes. We work with a lot of central universities, and when we land up there, we find there is no help desk. The help desk doesn't exist, and as a result of that, a lot of students are not able to get even the bare minimum of information in
Exactly.
a friendly, accessible manner in which they are used to getting in this world. And that's the gap, so that's the gap in application management. And you can call it by a lot of names. You could call it CRM, student focus, whatever. But I
Right.
think broadly, using the tools to be allowing these institutes to do things at scale, and that's what we've been doing. And the same is for assessments. You have nearly 50 lakh assessments happening. Now you have 50 lakh assessments happening. How do you make sure that the right feedback is being given? How do you
Right.
make sure that they are fair? How do you make sure that there are no biases involved? Just because I knew the student, I gave him 5 marks extra. That doesn't seem to be a sound way of doing these things, even though it is being done at scale. So all across, that's been our focus, that how do you get these whether the assessment processes or the application processes scaled up, yet personal, yet able to deliver the information and the feedback to the students in the timeline that they want.
Right. Of course, your point is very valid. And I think, Learning Spiral is doing a very good job, in enhancing the work done towards students and the betterment of them. So, what are the common challenges which are faced by educational institutions these days in assessment management? And how does Learning Spiral is addressing those issues?
So I think one big challenge which almost every higher education institute is facing today is that how do you keep the sanctity of the academic calendar? You have admissions which seem to go to take just too much time, as a result of which sessions seem to start late. You have an X amount of syllabus which needs to be covered. The COVID impact is also there in the sense that now the students are coming with a lesser knowledge of certain critical subjects. So you need to also bridge that gap. So you have a lot of pressure on the academic calendar. I think that's number one challenge, right? The linked challenge is that you have the NEP coming in. Your higher education framework says that you need to do continuous assessments. How do you do continuous assessments when your time is constrained? You're as it is right now struggling to do the semester exams in time. How do you manage to do more of those exams? You're asking us to do more such exams, to assess midterms, to assess 4 times in the semester. How do you do that? Again, it comes to how do you do that within the time zone? So that's what our assessment practices have helped higher education institutes do, because we massively cut time frames. So
Mhm.
for a typical semester exam for a typical university, and I'm talking about pen and paper examinations on answer booklets, they take close to 2 months for getting from the exam delivery date to the result date. Close to 2 months goes in 2 semesters, so nearly 4 to 5 months in the academic calendar is going in exams. Our
Right.
solutions help to reduce these 5 months to 1 month. So I talk about giving the results within 15 days instead of 2 months. So the 2 to 3 months which I can save for a higher education institute using the assessment solutions, I think that is the killer benefit which any of these institutes can take away using these solutions, because that allows their professors and colleges to teach for 2 to 3 more months. And that is
Right.
what the gap is all about.
Right. No, uh, it is so good to know that, Learning Spiral is doing such a great job. So what do you think, like how AI is upgrading the educational landscape of India? Because let's be honest, everyone is so dependent on AI. Whatever is happening, we are just Googling it or chat GPT-ing it. So like, how does AI is upgrading the education landscape, and how do we, try to save the traditional methods that, that even with the use of AI, traditional methods are not lost?
So it's a very poignant question, and I would be honest to say that my view is that higher education is still trying to find its way around what AI is doing,
Right.
because if you look at a typical higher institute and a higher education institute today, I would hazard a guess that while 70 to 80% of the students would be using ChatGPT, but I would say that not more than 20% of the professors would be using ChatGPT. So
Right.
you are, so that's the kind of landscape you're talking about, and the policies and the frameworks which, and the people who are running the higher education institutes are the professors and the deans. And the fact that their usage of AI is still lagging behind the AI usage of the students, whether we like it or don't like it, and I'm not talking about ethics here, I'm just saying that they're just using the tools more as compared to this, the other people who are on the other side, they're using it less, as a result of which, I think higher education has not yet found its way. When you talk about AI to a higher education institute, they talk about their courses, but
Right.
that's not what AI is affecting them. The AI effect is on day-to-day lives. It's
Right.
becoming a way of leading the life. And just
Mhm.
like we used to otherwise make people digitally aware, I think today's students need to be made AI aware, and that AI awareness is what is going to help them lead their lives better or worse. So that's, I think that's a big role to play, that how higher education institutes can make students more AI aware, and in the process, of course, the institutes themselves need to adopt and adapt themselves. So I
Right.
think that's where we are in terms of the Indian context of higher education, of AI's impact on higher education. Of course, world over, AI is being used in a lot of use cases, and even our tools, our software solutions, they are using AI at a lot of places, So whether it is assessments, whether it is examinations, even suggestive grading of the answer given by the student. So all of those things are being done by the AI in variety of manner for the review of the teacher or the professor. So it's not something which is dished out straight to the student, but
Mhm.
then it's sent to the teacher, which can help him to perform his duties in a better way. So that's
Right.
how it's being used in our solutions, and I think it's something which can be very, very beneficially used for higher education as well.
Right. So I completely understood. So, do you think that like students face any difficulty, once they are dependent on AI? So do they face any difficulty, in writing their examination, or, in the higher run that, applying for the jobs to enhance their skills? So do you think it's a boon or bane for the students?
See, technology never per se is a boon or bane, whether it is, age old, whether you take nuclear science or whether you talk about AI today, So per se, it is never going to be a boon or bane. The usage pattern, and that's what I told you, that, I think higher education institutes need to make people aware as to what is the
Right.
benefit of AI and what are the negatives of AI, So the correct use of AI can help the students learn better, can help the students solve their queries in a timely manner, can help the students get a lot of feedback, which otherwise they might not have got, right? And all
Right.
of that can very much enhance their grades and their learning,
Right.
but used in a different way, without being aware that the world is changing, you would end up into a different scenario. You will say that I have not learned anything, I'm just putting some input and getting some output and putting the output back into the paper.
Mhm.
Now you have destroyed the process. So by being not aware that yes, the AI also makes mistakes, these are the kind of nuances which need to be there, you will come to a conclusion that you are just using it and you don't even know what you want to do.
Right.
So I think that's the journey which, if it is the higher education institutes work with the students, they will be able to use the same tools and get a better benefit out of it.
Right, of course. So, I'll now switch to the questions related to the government schemes. So, as the government has recently investigated the skills and job empowerment. which is needed and youth skill for youth skill development. What is your opinion on that?
So I think it's true that skills and job empowerment and employability is the bigger problem for higher education, and you have,
Right.
if you look at the engineering sector, for example, I think enrollments in engineering sector have been falling year to year by as much as 20-25%. I think from last 3 years, it's fallen to like 60%. So
Mm-hmm.
we are just producing less engineers. And the reason is that the education was not really making engineers out of them. You ended up with 4 years of investment and you still were not really an engineer. So that's the problem. That's the problem. So definitely, investment and delivery of skills, delivery of employable skills, those are definitely the need of the hour. There is no doubt about it.
Right.
And to that extent, investment in that area is definitely something which is to be credited, that the government is trying to do that. And I think that's a great.
Right. So again, another question by the for the regarding government schemes. So what is your take on the condition which is happening of the NEET aspirants? The NTA issue and everything. So how do you think like government could have played a better role so that the future of the students was secured?
So no, I think overall, when you look at it, the way assessment and high stake exams are conducted in our country, there are fundamental problems.
Right.
The fundamental problems exist at organizational layer. I'm not even talking about people layer, I'm talking about the structure layer. So
Right.
you create an NTA, this is a national body,
Mm-hmm.
and almost all of its assessment processes are outsourced.
Right.
The exam conduction is also outsourced. The applicant base is also, the application handling is also outsourced. Everything is outsourced.
Right.
The amazing thing is that before this NTA handling it, the same people were doing these outsourced work, but they used to get this work from a different government.
Right.
So what has happened effectively is that you have created a new entity,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing has changed.
Right.
So the whole idea behind NTA, as I understand, was to create a superior examination conducting body, right?
Right.
But how do you create a superior examination conducting body if you're not going to change your structure or the process? So if
Exactly.
you're not going to change structure or process, then there is no change which is going to happen. Same input, you're going to get the same output. It's as simple as that. So I think that's a bigger question to be handled, that have we really changed anything, or we have just put in place a new name because the guys at CBSE were too overburdened, and so now we created another organization, but we are going to do the same things in the same old manner. Then you're going to end up with the same old problems, and that's what is happening. These problems are not new. Paper getting leaked, things getting compromised, these were age old problems of the old system. You have
Right.
replicated the problems, and I'm not surprised. As being in the industry, I can very much see there was nothing new in the NTA.
Mm.
Nothing new was done by the NTA. So if you're going to end up doing the old things, then I believe that you're going to end up with the old problems, and that's what has happened. uh, on a technology note, I would want to say that technology has created fair degree of solutions for us to actually circumvent our ways to a lot of these issues.
Right.
Only thing is that you need to use the technology along with the right organization structure. So
Right.
you can't have, the application data being handled by the same entity who's doing exam data. These are simple things, but at an organization layer, you need to keep that silos. You need to keep them separated out. The papers, they need to get digitally encrypted, digitally transported. A lot of problems we have seen that in earlier exam systems, that's a place of weakness because there
Right.
are too many people handling. If you can change that, then you will be having a new way of delivery of exams, which would be a great respect to the lakhs of students who are actually
Right.
giving them. You
Right.
know, but if you don't do any of those changes, you don't use the technology,
Exactly.
you will
Right.
end up with the same problems. And you can put the best of persons. You will still
Complete.
end up with you will come with the same problems because
Exactly.
They are endemic to the system, the structure.
Right. So just, it was a very nice answer and I completely agree with you. So my last two questions will be regarding the business point of view, because at SMB Connect, we empower businesses and entrepreneurs across India. So my last two questions are like, number one was like as an entrepreneur, what are your suggestions to the budding entrepreneurs who want to set foot in the education industry? What can they do better and what do they learn from the challenges which you have faced so that they don't have to face the same challenges?
So I think, I'm also a small and medium business, though focused on education, but I am a small and medium business. So one thing that I would want to definitely inform budding entrepreneurs is that it's a struggle, so you need to be prepared for that. It
Right.
sounds cliched, but often you are glamorized by the fact that you're a boss, you're an entrepreneur, you're now running your own business, and that glamour component often takes away from the likely challenges which you're going to face.
Right. Right.
So I think that's a very conscious call which needs to be taken, that you are going in with which is going to be a struggle at a lot of periods, and especially the early periods. The second is that it's a long haul.
Right.
It's not something which is going to happen overnight. You read a lot about these success stories which happened overnight. 2 years they became very big and all of that, and unicorns got made. But
Exactly.
let me tell you that you know the number of SMBs are far more as compared to the number of unicorns.
Right.
And there is a fundamental reason for that, and that is that for most businesses, becoming a unicorn might even not be necessary, and might even not be required, and might not also happen. You know,
Right.
so that so it's something which cannot be the driving force for running the business. If your goal is to become the unicorn, then perhaps not it's not going to work out in that way. Very
Mm-hmm.
very few ideas can become unicorns. So I think you need to have a lot of good business sense about what you're doing and why you're doing, and what is the scale at which you can make it at, and not be just again glamorized and go by the thing, okay, that this is going to become a unicorn tomorrow, right?
Right.
The third, which is a little contrary to the second one, but very, very critical, that while you might not become a unicorn overnight, but you still need to dream big.
Right.
Why you still need to dream big is because the journey is tough, and the wins might be more spaced out, and it's that dream big which is going to keep you working in the right direction, right? And the dream big is important because you need to scale up. The size of SMBs, I think, successful SMBs, is increasing over the years.
Right.
So it's not that. So I would say that definitely micro businesses are becoming fundamentally non-viable in our economy today because the cost of overheads is rising, right? So and there is a equal pressure of income which is increased in professional jobs. So it might not make any sense for you to run a micro business now, because it might be better for you to do a job. Compared to
Understood.
that,
Yeah.
the SMBs, when you come into the small and business size, I think their sizes per se is increasing, and I think that's a function of the dreaming. That people are wanting to grow bigger, and the faster you become bigger, you'll be able to handle challenges and disturbances in the economy better. So I
Right.
think that's the three things which future entrepreneurs, I would want to leave them with these three ideas. So that's what I would want to say.
I really hope these pointers are really valid and they really do make sense. So I hope it will help all the budding entrepreneurs out there to build their own business. Lastly, your comments on the Indian education system and how can they improve as an entrepreneur and as a business owner.
I think the Indian education system is good. The schooling is rigorous per se. The government infrastructure exists in a large manner to provide education at an affordable rate still. So I think broadly speaking, it is good. it's it's easy to make comments and say that compared to the US and UK and a lot of places. But the problem, I think, with the education system is only about the quantity.
Right.
So it's not about really about the quality. I think a lot of people go out of the country go out of the country only because they don't have accessible education over here.
Right.
So that's, I think, what is required right now to be changed. That if we can increase the quantity, maintaining the quality, I
Right.
think that would be a great way.
Thank you so much for your views. Thank you so much, Manish, for joining us today at SMB Connect Spotlight Series.